Let's start the study circle with 3 Oms and a prayer to Swami. Om. 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 Dear Swami, we are so grateful to be able to meet here together in your presence today. While we are here together studying your word in your Bhagavatha Vahini, we ask that you open our ears and hearts to whatever it is you want us to learn. Please speak through each one of us and help us progress in our spiritual journey. Jai Sai Ram. Sai Ram, just a few etiquette reminders. Mute your cell phones. Want to be sure about that. Let's stay on the topic and ask any questions that arise. The best practice is to try to leave our ego outside so we'll all be ready to learn what we need to from today's session. Just a review from last session, we started with chapter 6. In fact, we heard it over again. And then we talked about how chapter 6, there is a difference, or the time era between chapters 4, 5, and 6 is different. We talked about Vidura's action of leaving the court, Duryodhana's Dhritarashtra's court during Duryodhana's misbehavior with Draupadi's. And then we talked about how dharmic and righteous his action was, and how he left the court since he could not stop the injustice. And then we talked about Vidura's renunciation, as in how he was easily able to walk out of that court as well, and not really look back, because that was the right action. And that led to our discussion about renunciation. So about renunciation, we read Swami's discourse on renunciation, the first piece of it, and we talked about how desire leads to anger and how desire destroys our thought of right action. That's what I meant. And of course, Ashaji talked about me, my mind. That's the real issue and a barrier for renunciation, because we are so attached to so many things. The goal should always be there. And we talked about how goals are important and how there may be obstacles, and that's where surrender plays a role. And we also then touched upon need versus want. That's at a very high level of what we discussed last week. Does anyone have anything to add? This is a great time. Yes.
Saira, I just want to a little bit more on the need and want. One thing that we realize is need actually comes from the heart, from the conscience. Need is want is coming from the mind. But we also have to know that the mind is the king. And so the mind creates the wants, but it is the same mind which also tells you what should be want and what should be need. So it is really the mind that has to make the discrimination. So I thought I will just give a little, the need actually is defined only by your own conscience, and it is really dependent on the spiritual state we are in. And so, for example, if I just want to give this example of Mr. K.T. Naik, and then Sujata's father. So almost to the day about almost 25 years ago, he talked about his experience. So when he was a child, he actually went through the renunciation. I mean, he didn't want to have any attachment to material things, and only thing he said, he used to drink milk because to satisfy his mom. Even that I thought was a luxury. He thought it was a luxury to just even drink milk. And so he led his life like that. But he wanted to be patient and finish his school and college, and he got a job. As soon as he got a job in his early 20s, he decided this is the time to go and to Himalayas. So as he started walking, He said he's going to walk. So he left the home with just three things. So at that level of development, that's what I want to emphasize. He decided that all he needs is the cloth on his back, whatever sandals or thing that he was wearing, a copy of Bhagavad Gita, and then a little vessel to store water. And that's it. He started walking, and he said, "I don't need any money, because I'm going. God will take care of me, and whatever I need, full surrender to whatever I need, He will provide." So he started walking. And one plan he had was, in India, you can walk to the nearest village. Every village has got a temple. That's what he decided. He'll go to the temple. The temple will have a little pond or something. He can always find the shelter is there in the temple. And if I get anything, if God wills to eat, for me to eat, he'll provide something. With that, he started walking. So he was going one after the other, each of the temples. And as he went through, by the time, of course, even though he's only about 20, in his 20s, so he had a long beard and everything started looking like a Swamiji. And so people started asking him questions and they were kind of surprised that he can actually speak English. And so, they didn't realize how educated he was. And like that, it went on. So as he became, more and more days passed, he went into a little town and in that little town, there was some festival going on. I think the school got an award or something. So the teachers were celebrating some big function and they saw him and said, "Oh, you should be a chief guest, come here." They included him there. And followed by that, they gave a big feast. So they made him wait for the feast, and after that, they gave him, they had made a collection and said, Swam, they probably asked him a lot of questions, but then they gave him like a reward, a small bag of money, and he said, "I don't need this, I don't want any money. He will provide for everything," and so he just, refused it. But they said, "No, you might need it. Keep it." So, they just stuffed it in him. So he said, "Okay, I'll leave it in that. I don't need that. But I'll, since it is coming out of love, I'll just keep it." So he walked with that. And then shortly after that, they told him, because by the time he finished all these festivities and started walking, it was later in the afternoon. They said that to the next village or something, it might be easier for you to take a shorter cut rather than the road. So they told him to take the field view. So he went through that. And by this time, sandals are worn out. So a lot of thorns, along that road. And meanwhile, after a long time, he had a feast. Because all this time he was just getting, alms. And then tummy gave way. And so now he didn't know what to do. And he was really hurting. And so like this, he walked. He said suddenly, Panduranga appeared. Suddenly he was walking and somebody very nicely dressed. He started walking along and he said, "Where are you going?" Started talking to him and said, "I'm also going to the same place. Why don't you come?" So as they are walking through, they see a train, a station and there is a train. And then this gentleman says, "Why don't we, anyway, we have to go there. The train is going there. Why don't we take the train?" And then after a while, he asked, "Do you have any money?" And of course, that gentleman didn't have any money. So at least Katie Naik thought it is Panduranga himself who was coming. And so, so he said, "Yeah, I do have some money." So he pulls it out and they buy the ticket. They get into the train, they talk and keep going. And they buy the ticket only up to a certain place. And then that gentleman said, "Okay, my spot has arrived. I'm leaving." And so he continued and the TT said, "Next station is my last station. I'll take you up to that. After that, you're on your own." So he went there, and then, the long and short of it, that tummy problem became really worse. And they said, "Okay, you have to go to this guy. He will give you a medicine that will work very well." So the last few change, he used it for that purpose. And then suddenly he realized how useful that money is. And then he started feeling, I am giving trouble to God. When you come to the need, you know, you have to be careful, if you give up everything. Then he said, "I am now demanding him to take care of me and this. So there is nothing wrong in keeping a little bit of money." So the whole story is, you know, need is decided by your conscience. So it should be, what we think is correct and that decides the need. And that is again decided by the mind. The mind distinguishes between the want and need. And so that's what I wanted to really focus on. Sai.
Sairam, I have to disagree with you on one point. That is, I think need and want both are coming from the mind. Conscience has nothing to do with it. So everything we operate under the control of mind. You said conscience when you need something, want. Yeah. Yeah. Mind, yeah, mind controls.
All right, Sairam. So that was a need versus want discussion, and we can move on to this is just through chapter 6. Vidura's renunciation is the name of the chapter, and we will move on. Yes, last week we started on how desire leads to anger and dissatisfaction, and then greed. So we'll move on to the next piece of that discourse. So if someone can read, Om, would you like to read it? This one? Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is the next one.
But men today embark on actions in the expectation of what they can get from society and not when they can offer it. This is not the right attitude. Each one should ask himself what is that society can receive from me? What good can it get from me? Action should be undertaken with this high-minded attitude. Desire makes one incapable of entertaining such a large hearted view, with the result that all our actions get tainted in one way or other. Karma thus turns men Karma thus turns man away from following a secret path in his actions. Hence the pronouncement. Desire is destructive of right action. Then comes krodha, anger. Anger makes a man insane. It causes loss of wealth, undermines one's reputation, alienates one from his fellow man, and leads to the loss of everything. The angry man cannot succeed in any endeavor. He will encounter endless troubles. Doing sinful deeds, he is despised by the world. Anger deprives a man of his wisdom. He loses his worldly knowledge, his sense of discrimination, his powers of judgment, and even his knowledge gained from past experience. Anger is fraught with man dangerous potential, with such dangerous potential. Third vice is lobha, greed. Whatever he may earn, whatever he may achieve, the greedy man is incapable of renouncing anything. Such a one is ready to receive anything from anyone but is not willing to part with anything. Greed breeds the attitude in which one says, "What will you give me if I come to your house? What will you bring for me when you come to my house?" Greed promotes this kind of insatiable attitude for possessions. You have to give up an evil tendency to this kind.
Okay, Sairam. So in today's world, we talked about this briefly last week on what does renunciation mean. I mean, so we talked about three things that Swami brought up, and that is desire that leads to anger and greed. He kept it very simple. So we only have three things to talk about in terms of renunciation. So in today's world, he obviously always says you don't have to leave everything, right? But how what do we then how do we control these things? Because what does renunciation mean? And what does Swami say? One must renunciate. Yeah, we understand that we should not be angry. We understand that we should not be greedy. Intellectually, I think all of us get it. And anger comes and goes. In fact, I don't think a lot of us are really angry. I think it's very momentary. We have annoyance versus anger. So I so So I feel that most of the so anger is a longer version of annoyance. Annoyance is just in time, right? How much longer? I don't know. I mean, how long you can bear with such an emotion?
Yeah, see, anger, again, the definition of anger itself varies, A momentary raise of a voice, you can consider that as an anger, okay? As a spurt reaction to something that you don't accept or you don't agree with. Then you raise your voice and say, hey, shout, okay? That's a sign of anger. So that can be, or it could be like a prolonged response to something, the very high level of anger where you don't talk to somebody, you show your displeasure, you do. That is the highest level. And I don't think we are in that stage. Maybe that's what Bhavani meant by saying that we don't have that kind of anger. But momentary raise also is not good. I mean, that also we should, I mean, that is also anger. So I kind of, that's what I think. But coming to this I mean, renunciation, what we need to renounce, the way I understand is desires is the basic thing, right? So if you look at the desire, Swami never says that you don't have any desire. Desireless state is very, very high level, but you can put a ceiling on desires. So if you put a ceiling on the desires, then slowly increase that ceiling, or in other words, slowly, for example, 20 years back, I mean, we did talk about it last session, smartphones were just coming up. At that time, many of us felt that smartphone is a luxury. Why do we need a smartphone? We have a small cell phone that we can dial with that, and then we can talk. Cell phone is meant for just talking, and this is great that we can talk on our road. Why do we need a smartphone? And then the time passed when everything became dependent on that smartphone. Everybody started communicating with that smartphone device, assuming that everybody has a smartphone. Then you're forced to have a smartphone. Then you now is the stage where you can say, I don't, you it's very difficult to say I don't need a smartphone. I don't, it's very difficult. A few of us are there. Maybe we are trying to cope with that, but there are a lot of challenges in not having a smartphone. Now, if you look at that, is smartphone the reason? I don't think it's a smartphone the reason. It's our mind that is the reason. So how you use that smartphone, for what purpose you use the smartphone is the one that dictates whether that is useful or not. So it's not the entity by itself that is the problem. It's the way we use it. That's the problem.
Yeah. So sorry. Go ahead.
No, well, I mean, we have a calendar at home, which
He
is a
makes
daily
notes.
calendar. So yesterday, actually, Swami defined renunciation in that calendar. So, so he says there are two things. One is give up, and that is do not tightly clasp onto something, and then release, do not bind or get bound. So I was thinking about this. What is, what mine, this belongs to me. That's what we clasp. Yeah. And then, our pride, prejudice, this in the mind way, we are clasping to that, my mind belief. And that is the truth. And so that is all clasping. So he says, do not clasp, leave it. So that is what you have in possession, leave it. Likewise, we go and grab, your children have grown, but you still want to go and grab. And there are problems, you want to take it. And so this is, going and collecting from other people the problems, and then so he says release. So that's what he means by release. All these you should not keep with you. Release it. So I think that is what I understand from the definition.
From renunciation. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Sairam, about renunciation, yeah. See, some people say, I want to leave everything. I'll go meditate, sit in a cave, and, nothing to do with the world. So is that renunciation? Vivekananda says, one who runs to the mountain to meditate and die, he lost the way. And one who plunges into the vanities of the world, he also lost the way. Then who has found the way? The question comes. Then he says, one who sees divinity in everything and everyone around him, where you are, wherever you are, whoever you are with, you see the divinity in each and everyone, then you find the way. So if we can keep that in mind, then the renunciation, we don't need to go anywhere to, get the renounce everything. On other hand, we can say, like Swami says, kama, krodha, lobha. So we can renounce those things, right? So if we can take one at a time to renounce, then we are making progress.
See, one thing I feel is expectation, actually. When we say, that is what lies underneath everything. If you have an expectation from somebody, anybody, you're attached, uh, but once you don't have expectation, no problem. You did it, fine. You didn't do it, doesn't make any difference. So you're not affected by it. I find that is the bottom line thing is expectation, not only from the world, but even from your own self. We expect so much from our own, so I can do this and that and all that. And it comes to the same thing. You're disappointed when you can't fulfill your own expectation. So I've got to the point where I feel if you don't have expectation, then you're safe.
Sorry, I accidentally cut.
Saira. Okay. So yeah, so when you say expectations, right? So every role we play comes with a job description on what we are supposed to do, how we are supposed to do it. So those expectations are already laid out for us. We may not have an expectation from exterior, but a role that we play has that imbibed into it to how to play it correctly with that certain level of expectation from that role. We may not expect it from other people. I'm talking about even as self. Like as a friend, you have a certain expectation. You're expected to behave a certain way. As a mother, a certain way. As whatever role we have, we are guided to play it in. So those expectations are already imbibed in the role. Is my point.
See, the way I understand is that is you. That's the way I distinguish. That is something like a goal. That's an ideal. For example, that's what is expected in what do you say? Expectation again is a loose word. Expectation today, right now, when I am doing something, I want to finish this. Okay, you have a goal, but if it doesn't go according to that, then you start blaming because that you have that expectation that you will either finish it or achieve it. That you don't have. That expectation is the one that you don't have. You should not have. But overall goal, you all work towards it. I mean, there is no, we have to have some goal. We have to, I mean, we have our chores. We have to cook. We have to have food ready by this time. Those are all taken. So you work towards it. But if something happens, you forgot that you added a salt of salt. I mean, spoon of salt. You added one more. Okay, so you don't blame yourself for it. Just that's just accept it. So you don't expect that food should be super and all that. Those expectations you don't have because then you're bound to have the disappointment.
See, like we bring up the children, family. We do our best, right? And they also do their best to come up with everything. Eh? And then if we have an expectation and if you don't succeed or the kids don't succeed, something goes wrong in life. Eh? And if you had expectation, then you will suffer from it. I find like my nephew, I did a lot for his children, fine. And then he says, when his birthday came, the boys are big guys with their own children, even that age difference. But they did not have time to call him and say, Daddy, happy birthday. And my nephew called me. He said, Masi, do you see? They didn't even have time to say happy birthday to me. So all I could tell, I said, Kamal, this is the only thing, don't have expectation. Let it go. The more you have expectation, it'll hurt you. And that's all. So since then, this has been a while now. So whenever he talks, he says, Masi, I still remember, I'm not having expectation from so that it comes to non-attachment, detachment. It sort of involves all that.
Yeah, so I think the expectation, by just using that word is not enough. Like you said, it's the goal is to be there. The result, expectation, if you are expecting a particular result, that is the expectation we should, we are talking about.
Yeah, I think that's something that we can renounce. So at any given point, we can think about, because that expectation can definitely lead to disappointment if we are not meeting that. Or it can lead to joy, because if we have exceeded that expectation, also it may lead to joy. But both are not good. So the moment we feel that either disappointment or joy, we can think that that's because of the expectation, and then try to renounce that. That's something that maybe we can do.
So we are talking at different platforms. Everyone is talking at different levels. What Umaji mentioned about Vivekananda saying that, you know, not you don't have to go to the mountains to do that. Are we negating the tapasya of all the sadhus and all the rishis who have done such a long tapasya, and that had been a set protocol for centuries and centuries? Even Shankaracharya ji, who just came like 100 years ago, he followed the same path. So are we trying to negate all that? It depends on which context we are talking about, on what circumstances we are talking about. So that one should not interpret. I mean, I agree. I know that you did not mean in that manner, but we just wanted to clarify for everyone else also. It depends on the circumstances in which Vivekananda said it also. That cannot be taken as a standard protocol for all humanity or all Hinduism who follow that. Because if that had been the thing, are we saying that all those things were wrong? No. They were all good. And that's what was the set protocol for centuries. Just because this phase of Kali Yuga, when people don't have time for this, people don't have time for that, they wanted to make it precise, to make a shortcut, to reach it faster. He himself did a lot of tapasya. So that's why he reached to that level. So we cannot negate that part at all.
That is why he said that, what I said, because he did all that. And then he went to one of the caves, and he got the realization that he doesn't have to sit in the cave and do all this.
After doing all that tapasya, he realized it.
Right. And then Sri Ramakrishna also told him, what do you want? He got the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and then he said, I want to stay like this forever. Vivekananda said that. And Sri Ramakrishna said, no, no, no. I thought you will be like a banyan tree. All the birds can come and take refuge under your
Exactly.
thing.
So
Do that. Don't be. See, the thing is, if we hear stories like that and we say people go to Himalayas and meditate and they get renunciation and self-realization, this is for people like us. We cannot take off and go to the mountains, and we cannot leave the samsara either. But at the same time, we don't have to be immersed in the samsara, immersed in the worldly things. So then how can we get some self-realization or some spiritual knowledge? That is where it comes that we can train ourselves to see the divinity. We don't need to do anything extraordinary. We can do simple things.
yes,
That's
exactly. That's what he meant. For people who are in the Grasta ashram, for them, for what is applicable to them. But everyone has their own vritti, own state of mind. Even at this stage, people might feel, no, I'm not getting what I wanted to get, that moksha which we are trying to achieve. If if his vritti says that I have to take the vairagya, he should take the vairagya. He should leave the Grasthashram. He should go and try to do what he wanted to achieve. It depends on everyone's vritti. That's what Vivekanandaji's guru, Ramakrishna Paramahansaji, he himself had done. And Vivekanandaji also had done. And that's when he realized, he came to this realization. So this is different on different platforms, on what applies to different kind of category of people. So that's what I just wanted to mention.
Yeah, actually, the reverse has happened. Like I was talking about Sujata's father, and then CM is another one. And they all went to the Himalayas, and then they got the Diksha, and they wanted to be there all the time. But their guru said, no, 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 this is, you need to go. I think you have to go into the Grahastama and still follow the spiritual practice. So even those who go there may not stay there. They have been sent back, so that also happens.
See, one thing, another thing, I feel like if we can have acceptance, I had expectation, all right. Whatever the result came, can I accept it? That acceptance, if it is there, then it will come to the same thing as renunciation. If it happened good, fine. If it didn't happen good, then that's okay too. So having acceptance in either way, I think that would be as good as renunciation, I would feel, right?
In my opinion, renunciation would be renunciation of the personal self, the ego, the me. The more you say, I'm not the karta, the more the God works through you. And especially that expectation, like Asha said in the previous what he read, it said that I did this, so I should get this back. That will always lead to, not a good frame.
Yeah, I completely agree. So the way you're saying, so what is the distinction between me doing and God working through me? So if we see the distinction, whenever God does something, so that the way we believe is whenever God does something through us, we believe that will be perfect because God is working, right? That is the distinction we have. So whatever happens when we firmly have the faith that it's the divinity that is working through us, whatever the result is, that is perfect. Because there is nothing like it could have been better. Because when God is working through us, that has to be perfect. So that is the belief. That is the faith. So then there is no question of disappointment. Then there is no question of that. I think that I completely agree. I think that is firm belief that we are not the doers, and it's the divinity. We are all divine, and the divinity that is working through us.
So that's what is happening. People have become overeducated in Adhyatam. That is the problem. We have learned this phrase, Paramatma is working through me. We have learned this phrase. That is the problem. We have learned these few phrases, few sentences without actually, we are lucky people that we are having this kind of discussion and trying to enter the Adhyatam. But this is so easily available on WhatsApp, or so easily available on television, everywhere. So people have learned these sentences. Now what people are doing, people like myself, we are doing it to fulfill some hidden desire, something, some hidden ego, some hidden anger, and we are blaming on God. We are bringing him. God is making me do this. We have learned these ways to it's all divine. It's all divine. Divine is going through me. We have learned all that to pretend to say that it's all divine. We have to come out of this myth, this delusion. It's not that easy. In everything we bring in God. We try to put everything on God. We are doing it for some of my ego, some of my craze, some lust, and we are bringing immediately God. Oh, God is making me do this. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but this is a common error we all are doing.
In Sai's center, it is very, very common what you are talking about. Very conveniently, we use Swami, Sai, If we say Swami always wants us to be very punctual, Okay, take a lot of pride in being punctual. But then if somebody goes overtime, a speaker, for example, they say, oh, Swami wanted it this way. Who can argue with this? So, like you said, we conveniently use God's name or whoever is your guru's name in vain, saying this suits me at this moment, so I can talk this way. Or we don't even go to the extent of thinking I can talk this way. We just automatically do this. So that is a good point too. Then we have to be aware of it. Then that is where the thought, word, and action, I keep harping about it, should be in alignment. When we do that, probably we won't misinterpret the message of our gurus. And in Gita, Krishna says, nishkama karma, whatever we do, leave that fruit of the action to me. But how many times we consciously do that? Sometimes maybe, but many times if Venkat was saying, if I do it, if we think we do it, that's our ego talking only. Because of me, this got done in such and such way and in time. So those are the things again and again, there are a couple of things only we have to talk about, only mind control and action.
I would rather start saying, I am the doer. Let's take the responsibility of all your acts. That would be a better path to reach to that level. Otherwise, we, as you said, we are conveniently passing the blame to him, conveniently passing on the responsibility to him. So let's be the doer. Let's be responsible for our karmas. And that is the fact. The whole Bhagavad Gita is full of karma yoga. He's talking about karma. You are responsible for your karma. All your sanskars are developed by your karma. All your future is dependent on your karma. And if you don't get to that level of adhyatmic moksha in this life, you will go to the second life till you get to that level. So karma is the big time. So we have to take the responsibility of all our karmas. So after repeatedly doing, that's why all this journey is made. There is no shortcut. There's no shortcut that will start putting it on him, will be released. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. I have done it for so many years. Take the responsibility of all your small acts, big acts. Unless we do that, how will we correct it? How will we fix it? So the whole thing, so God also made Arjuna do the karma. That was the whole beginning of Gita. He was trying to escape from his karma. Okay, do it? No, it has to be. So that's in a larger perspective only. When that I have planned it, but still he wanted him to do it. So we cannot escape from our duty. That is the final thing.
Yeah. Sabita, you wanted to? You sure?
One thing is interesting. I was listening to by chance Papaji on TV. Papaji was a guru of Muji Baba and so on. So on that level. So he said one thing which came clear in my head, that is they say we are aware. I'm aware this is happening. We are talking. We are singing. Whatever we do, we are aware of it. I am aware what I'm doing. Exactly. But then there's some power or something which is awareness, which is aware of this awareness, of my awareness. And that is who you are. Right? So if we can have visualize that, actually, there's nothing to see. If we can be aware of that, a higher awareness of what we are aware of, then maybe it'll help us we will take do what we should be doing, what is right for us to do, and be responsible for that. Accept what is the results of it. We have to accept the results of it. Every good or bad something we have to accept, and that is in a way renunciation. Now, okay, fine, whatever happened, it's okay. That's what I did. But it was nice that if we can keep it in mind that there is an awareness which is aware of our awareness, that's everything that's going on. Maybe that we can also feel that there is something higher than me which is aware of what I am doing. Maybe it will help me do better, good, and not do bad in life also. Yeah.
What you were talking, I think, is free will and destiny. I think with Arjuna, he wanted to do what he wanted to do, and his last words were "Karishye vachanateva." He wanted to do what Krishna wanted him to do. I think. I think basically you have to subvert your will to God's will, even though you are the doer.
That came at the 18th chapter only when he surrendered finally. He kept on surrendering, then he started questioning. Repeat. In the 18th chapter only, he said this sentence that, okay, I surrender to you now. But before that, he was arguing for 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
The whole 17 chapters, he kept on putting his questions. So that because he was getting emotional about killing those people, his own living being, his own relatives. So he wanted, leave the emotions aside, do your duty. Leave your emotions aside, do your duty. So he kept discussing, but in the last chapter only he surrendered. He did not surrender earlier.
Yeah. So
So one last thing I'll add is that state of how to surrender to God only comes after you cleanse yourself of all the impurities. Otherwise, how you cannot see the divinity. You think you're seeing it, but you don't. You're constantly covered by your own, sense things. So that cleansing itself takes a lifetime. So if that is your job every day, getting up and you're focusing on yourself about how your action should be, what your thoughts are going to be, how you're reacting to people, if you cleanse that day by day, it only gets easier and easier to a stage where it becomes nothing but you can see the divinity clearly, how to behave clearly. I think that's where we have to start. The renunciation happens automatically. It's not a thing you
Correct.
can do in a day or moment or something. It happens. It's a process, So the process you start with yourself, not with others.
yeah.
Or
So
things,
the end
or
goal or the end result is
is the
renunciation.
end result is renunciation. It's not a thing you renounce. It's not a feeling you renounce. It's not something you can renounce. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
So as Shobhaji was saying, we have to vichar before all the actions, vichar before all the thoughts also. Keep 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 an eye on your thoughts. Keep an eye on your actions. So that vichar is the only way to clean. And slowly, obviously, when the cleansing happens, that renunciation will automatically happen. So keep thinking what
So-
your thoughts are.
Yeah, so I just want to bring it back to our discussion because we are just going to discuss what Swami is saying, and absolutely that is what he's leading to. So if we can just move along to the next one. Yeah, Om Bhargav, whoever, I don't want to put Om on the spot. If he's okay with it, then go ahead. Go ahead, Om. Yeah.
The practice of giving up is known as the literal meaning of the word is that which is opposed to raga, attachment. Raga signifies attachment to the body. There is nothing wrong in attachment. Raga includes love for family, hith and kin. This attachment is not wrong. You should love your parents and show regard for your brothers and sisters. You should keep your body fit and healthy. These are legitimate desires. What should be noted, however, is that there should be limits to such attachments. You may have noted that in singing, the raga is important, but when the musician indulges in excessive elaboration of the raga, it tends to become roga, eh, in an infliction. The words of the song should not be lost in the elaboration of the raga. The fire in the oven should be just enough for the food to be cooked. The salt to be added should be limited to the quantity, and to be prepared salt in excess will spoil the dal. Likewise, our attachment should be properly restricted. Today, we are witnessing attachments growing without limit. Attachment to the body, to relations, to education or to the acquisition of knowledge is exceeding all limits. Even with regard to desirable objects, it is essential to limit one's desires. There can be no happiness without restraint of desire. When there is no restraint, excessive desire becomes an evil. It leads to misery. When we strive to control desire in due course, it develops into vairagya, non attachment or renunciation. Vairagya means giving up association with objects while recognizing their inherent worth. In a band of 10 bad men, there may be one good man. Among 10 good men, there may be one who is a seeker of God. Among 10 seekers, there may be one filled with love of God. Among 10 lovers of God, there may be one at least who desires to experience the divine. Among 10 such devotees, there may be one at least who is ready to renounce an attachment, and only such a man qualifies for earning the love of God. That is why it has been declared only rough renunciation can immortality be attained.
So this is what Swami says on attachment. So and he gives us the entire rundown. So basically, since we all have attachment, not ready to renounce, I'm not sure. So the first thing I thought about is how can we do our duty without attachment? Swami says there is nothing wrong in being attached to our family, our friends, or whoever, but at the same time, not be over attached. How can one restrict attachments? Being in this body and having all these kinds of likes and dislikes, and what changes can we bring on our lives to renounce attachments? I know we have talked about attachment before, but I just want to bring it to not make it too deep. But of course, we can always resurface what we talked about attachments earlier as well. So how do we do our duty without attachment? That is of most importance, right? We have to, he didn't say don't be attached, but don't be over attached. So how do we not do our duty without being over attached? I think that's because the way we think is we'll take care of our parents, that is our duty, and we will serve them. Will we serve the other with the same amount of love that we would serve our own parents? Because with parents, you have that attachment. And how do we get there then?
So many years ago, I was listening to some talk, and this gentleman was, giving a spiritual talk, but is also a big officer in a company. So one of the things he says is, when you are sitting there, wear that hat. When you are here, remove that hat. So the most of the time, what happens is we bring one set of emotions or whatever happened here to the other place. You have some problem at home, you bring it to work, and then you show it in work. Or you have some issue in work, you bring it here. So I think from what I can say, performing duty without attachment is due in that particular thing. Just focus on what that is, and don't bring your entire life into problems into that. So I think that's what I understand.
Sarah, what I want to add is we have to recognize that attachment brings misery. Nobody wants to be miserable. Like I know the minor things we say, oh, we're showing love to our family and all, but if you look at the big picture and keep all the expectations, keep involved ourselves totally into others' lives, no matter whether they're family or friends or anything. Do what you need to do, but attachment means like living their life, like being nosy to put in like. So we have to recognize that actually that brings misery. No matter what we say, we humans are born to be happy, to joyous. So if you recognize that this is something that's going to take the joy away, if not in short term, in the long term for sure, then maybe we will want to start, like reducing our attachments. Sarah.
So yeah, no, I was reminded right in the beginning itself, and I'm continue for each one of them. I'm thinking, right. My mom used to say that her grandfather had a big, they were a joint family. His younger brothers, everyone lived in the same household. And he was the eldest guy, and so eldest person in that family. So he would, even if that peanuts and all, he had a small that balance, and he would put so that each one gets equal, not like his kids getting more out. So that kind of, that love was for the entire family. And even Venkat's parents, his chittappa gave up his whole work just to be with them when they needed him, them, that chittappa. So I feel like nowadays it's even more, we are becoming even more, selfish and self-engaged in that. I think at that time, they had a broader sense of love than what we have right now. That is my personal.
I kind of disagree. I don't think we should compare with the time. I think it's there even now. There are so many people who are sacrificing for the sake of the family and all that. But that's slightly different from what Swami means by attachment. Actually, I think uh, putting a boundary on that attachment. We don't want to go excessively attached. We don't want to be excessively attached. That is how I read that message. So we want to put you don't want you want to I mean we are ultimately talking about renunciation, right? So
What it is, right? So you have expanded when you expand the love to everyone, then you're not self-obsessed, right? You're not, so that attachment to self, this is mine, this is, that part was not that. This is belongs to everyone. I feel like that part we are missing now.
I have another take on this. We talked about going to the mountains, leaving the samsara behind. What happened is actual story with my cousin. He and many of you might know Swami Dayananda Saraswati. They were childhood friends. So they both decided to go look for gurus and in spiritual path. So they both went in their teens. I mean, after college, I think. So went to Himalaya, searched for a guru here and there. They went to Chinmaya mission and yeah. So then finally they both came back and Swami Dayananda went deeply into spirituality and he started the ashram near the foothills of Nilgiris and renounced person. And Swamiji, he has composed a Bo Shambho song also, one of those, yeah. So he talks about raga and desire. That is another one. But this story, I will stick to this one. So what happened to my cousin, who was equally well-versed and deeply into spirituality, but his karma or whatever it is, samsara, his mother, my Periyamma, he is the first son. She said, as long as I am alive, you don't take sannyas, like Adi Shankara's mother asked. So he never got married. So it so happened, he was also in the ashram in Dayananda's Anakati ashram. He was running classes and management, and he was working with Swami Dayananda ji all the time. But then what happened in his life, his mother lived up to 105. 105. She died only last year. My mother's nightmare was, oh my God, I don't want to live like my sister. I want to go. My mother fortunately died at age 88. My, my aunt, she lived up to 105. Then what happens to the son who wanted to be a sannyasi? He is 83 now. So what happened, this duty, now the duty got him into attachment so strongly. Now he has the health issues. I don't think he can go back to the ashrama life now. He's so trapped, and he never got married. So his younger brother's son and all, they bought a house in Coimbatore and he lives there. Now he needs medical attention and all this. Finally, his mother died. And he didn't do the final rituals. He said, I am a sannyasin in my mind. I'm not going to do it. My brother Grahastha, he can do it. So only the brother did all the rituals. See how the duty has got hold of him like this crocodile. Or the bear, the Ramakrishna Paramahansa, that story, this guy in the flood, he sees this nice blanket swept away, right? He jumps in Why waste the blanket? He gets hold of it. People are saying, you are going along with the water. Let it go. Chhod do. But he says, no, I am ready, but the rug doesn't let me go. The bear doesn't let him go. It got hold of him. Like this, samsara got hold of my cousin. So it can work this way too, I think. The duty can just suck you into attachment.
One question. When you say limit the attachment, right? I just wanted to know what is the definition of limit? What is the limit? Because the limit depends on the person. Person, it's a circumstantial, right? So every person will have its own limit, right?
Exactly.
For me, I have 80. If we define 100% is the maximum, okay. For me, 80% is the limit. For other person, only 30% is the limit. So how do you define what is the limit? Yeah.
So,
So actually, Swami has given a log scale here.
yeah, he said,
There's
one?
logarithmic description he has given. 1 in 10, 10, 10, 10.
Yeah.
I believe that I belong in the smallest 10. So first we have to come to that one of that 10, then become one of the next 10.
Yeah.
And that is when you reach that point. So I think we have to realize where we are in that 10. And that probably answers your question. And the limits change according to that.
I think the final analysis, the limit is follow God. So with your uncle or nephew, the person you're talking about, he should have, I think his duty was God. So, I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah. So with all of these things, right? So I guess that is a great example of over attachment, where your aunt actually wanted, curtail him because that was her attachment to her body as well. Because you know how we believe that the son has to do the final rites for the mother to actually achieve what her goal is. So all of that actually caused this but it could also have been his karma. We don't know the rest of the things, but the idea being that I think is a great example of over attachment.
See, but you're saying over attachment. You look at his mother. I'm just looking at, I don't know, I'm just basing it on what you have said. At the stage when your cousin wanted to become a sannyasi, mother must have been young and very healthy. At that time, her worry must have been that he is the only son, and her fear might be that if he goes to sannyasi, he may suffer. That's what usually the mother will think, that the son is going to go through some suffering when that son becomes a sannyasi. Forget about their own, this one about losing a support in their old age. Usually that comes first as a mother. But anyway, whatever it is. But what could have happened? I mean, we don't know. We don't know. There are so many possibilities. What could have happened as she turned 60 and all that? Maybe she could have said, okay, now you may. I say it becomes difficult. So you cannot say. I don't know what is over attachment. How do you define over
So
attachment?
the reason I say that is if the son is on the path towards God, the ability to recognize that path. If the son was going and partying and doing something else, a lot of our parents have let us go all the way across the sea to come to the US. But all her son was asking was Godward path. So that is the attachment piece that I'm talking. I feel this is just my observation again. Yeah.
Also, the thing noted, it wouldn't be the desire to be a sannyasi also a desire as well? So why is he so attached to this specific path, to God in that aspect? Can't he choose a different path? What made him so attached to that? And that's also something to consider.
A lot of sannyasis, right? Swamijis go into that path. They think that is their calling. They are not interested in the family life, working or whatever it is, like what we all do, right?
Yeah, so I would add to what Bhargav has said. So by serving his own mother, that he might have served his mother as God itself. The duty to that extent, so may not call it attachment. This path might have led him to that ultimate salvation, you can call it. So we don't know.
Yeah.
Baba has talked about desire all the time. All the time he says, cut down your desires. So we can take it like that is the big problem. Otherwise, he wouldn't tell us all the time reduce your desires. He's not saying let go everything, but reduce them. So that I maybe just the bottom line is that okay, what Swami is saying is correct. Follow that. It will help, I think.
Sairam just comes to a story which everybody knows. I'm just repeating to this reference is that Narayan was asked to, Narada asked Narayan to, who is the greatest devotee of yours? And he said that there's a farmer in some village, and he is my favorite devotee. He was so annoyed. Narada was so annoyed. Why? I was always chanting your name day and night, every 24 hours or maybe every time. Why he is? Now he gave I think Narada a ball of oil, and he said go around the Brahmanda and then come back. So and make sure that the oil is not spilling down. So he was very careful about the oil as he was walking, but he never remembered Narayana. So now, now Narayana asked, "How many times you have remembered my name?" So he said, "Swami, Narayana, how can I remember your name because I was concentrating on my thing." So, so and he described that farmer used to just remember once in the morning, once in the evening, goes to work, come back again and remembers Lord. I mean, this is what it is, what Swamis want to say. Do your duty first. That's very important.
Yeah. Shobha, please.
One last thing to just because the question came up, how do you know your limit? First of all, do you know when you're eating, you're full? Do we recognize that? How do we recognize that? By turning your attention inward. But if you're not thinking about it, eating, and you're watching something else and your mind is attention is outwards, you won't even know you're full. You'll be overeating, even though you're full. You'll realize it when it's too late. So the answer to that is introspection.
Yes.
You have to constantly turn your attention to self. Then you will know your own limits. Nobody has to teach you. Our limits, our desire, all those will come down slowly. You will realize yourself, I think. That is what we are lacking. We don't do that.
Yeah.
Our attention is
Outward.
from morning to night is always outside, outside, outside. We don't spend even a few minutes to think and see, where we stand in terms of our own self. That
Thank you.
process has to be an everyday
Absolutely.
process.
Absolutely. Sorry, we are at time, Shankaranji. We will end today's session with Om and Three Shantis. Thank you all for your participation. Om Shanta Shanta Shanti Sai Ram. Sorry.